Welcome to Hidden Lives. Every face has a story, and every door hides a secret. You're watching Hidden Lives, where we uncover the truths buried just beneath the surface. The lesson you learn from our story. True love never requires a mask, and a mother's instinct is the only security system a family ever truly needs. Come to the story. The room felt like it was closing in. Brett Collins, or whatever his real name was, collapsed into a worn recliner, burying his face in his hands. Randall Turner isn't just a lender, Brett whispered, his voice trembling. He's a predator. He's been squeezing us for 3 years. Natasha. She was a grifter long before I met her, but she promised me she'd gone straight. Then Zoe got sick. The NICU bills hit $200,000. Randall stepped in when the banks wouldn't. Now, he wants $1 million or he takes the house, the car. He even threatened Zoe. I looked at the little girl playing in the corner. She was the collateral. My heart broke for her, but my blood boiled for my son. Where is the wedding actually taking place? I demanded. I know the cathedral was the plan, but Natasha switched cars. She's not heading to the church yet, is she? Brett looked up, tears tracking down his face. No, there's a private estate in the hills, Randall's place. He insisted on witnessing the union to ensure his investment was secured. He has a notary on site. He's going to force Blake to sign over power of attorney as a wedding gift to his new bride. My stomach did a slow, sick flip. This wasn't just a gold digger's scheme. It was a hostile takeover of my son's entire life. I turned to Frederick, who stood by the door, his hand resting near the holster he'd worn since his days in the state police, the one he thought I hadn't noticed. Frederick, I said, my voice as cold as a mountain stream. Call our attorney. Tell him to freeze every account associated with the Hayes Trust immediately. Then, call the sheriff. Tell him we have a kidnapping and a high-stakes fraud in progress. Mrs. Hayes, Frederick said, his eyes gleaming with a dark sort of pride. What about Mr. Blake? Blake is a Hayes, I said, glancing at the photo of my late husband on my lock screen. He's about to learn exactly what that means. I turned back to Brett. You're coming with us. If you want to save your daughter, you're going to help me save my son. We arrived at the Randall estate 30 minutes later. It was a sprawling, gaudy monument to new money and old sins. Natasha's silver sedan was parked out front, looking out of place against the limestone mansion. Through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows of the library, I saw them. Blake looked baffled, hovering over a mahogany desk with a pen in his hand. Natasha stood over him, her hand on his shoulder, her loving mask beginning to slip into a snarl of impatience. Standing by the fireplace was a man in a sharp charcoal suit, Randall Turner. I didn't wait for the police. I didn't wait for a plan. I threw open the front doors like I owned the ground they were built on. Don't sign that, Blake! I shouted. The room froze. Blake dropped the pen, his face a mask of total shock. Mom, how did you? Margot, Natasha's voice turned shrill and ugly. What are you doing here? You're ruining everything. Everything was already ruined, Natasha, I said, stepping into the light. Behind me, Brett entered the room, clutching Zoe. The look on Natasha's face wasn't guilt, it was pure, unadulterated rage. She looked at Brett, then at me. You pathetic coward, she spat at her husband. It's over, Natasha, Brett said, his voice finally finding its steel. I'm not letting you destroy another family to save ours. We'll find another way. Randall Turner stepped forward, a smirk playing on his lips. This is all very touching. Truly. But I have a contract, and I have a debt. Blake, be a good boy and sign the papers, or things will get very messy for your mother. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. Randall, you've spent so much time studying our bank accounts that you forgot to study our history. My husband, Bernard, didn't build this empire on luck. He built it on contingencies. I held up my phone. The accounts are frozen. The sheriff is at your gates. And more importantly, I just blind copied the IRS on a digital file regarding your private lending practices. In 5 minutes, you won't have a cent to your name, let alone the leverage to threaten my son. Blake stood up, finally seeing the woman he'd loved for the predator she was. He looked at the marriage license on the desk, then at Natasha. He didn't yell, he didn't cry, he simply took the document and tore it into a dozen pieces. "Get out," Blake said, his voice vibrating with a quiet, lethal authority I hadn't heard since Bernard was alive. The perfect ending. 2 years later, the navy blue dress was finally put to use. It wasn't a cathedral wedding. It was a small, intimate ceremony in our backyard. Blake was marrying a woman he'd met at a charity gala, someone who hadn't even known his last name until their third date. Isabella, the woman I knew as Natasha, was serving a 10-year sentence for fraud, bigamy, and attempted grand larceny. Randall Turner's assets had been seized, and he was currently the lead defendant in a RICO case that would likely keep him behind bars for the rest of his life. As for Brett and Zoe, they moved to a quiet town in the Pacific Northwest. I set up a trust for Zoe's education, not because I owed him anything, but because that little girl deserved a future that wasn't built on her mother's lies. As I watched Blake walk down the aisle, truly happy this time, I felt a steady hand on my shoulder. It was Frederick. He leaned in and whispered, "Mr. Bernard would be very proud, Mom." I smiled, the weight in my chest finally lifting. "I know, Frederick, I know."